Kia ora to Karero from Aotearoa, New Zealand. For those of you that don't know, I've just used some Te Reo Māori, which is the indigenous language of New Zealand, to greet you, kia ora, and say we're going to have a bit of a discussion, or korero. Max and myself are both work for Toi Moana, the Bay of Plenty Regional Council, which is on the east coast of the North Island of Aotearoa, New Zealand. We're that little star basically on the east coast of the North Island in that aerial image there. Aotearoa is one of the Māori names for New Zealand and means land of the long white cloud. And land of the long white cloud comes about as New Zealand consists of two main islands, which are orientated north and south and have mountain ranges along their length. As weather patterns are generally moving from west to east across the Pacific, the prevailing wind flows are perpendicular to those mountains running the length of Aotearoa, resulting in the common effect of clouds building onto the mountain ranges, which can be seen from the sea. Hence, land of the long white cloud. The point of the natural history lesson here is that traditionally these clouds have brought plentiful rain for us. And we've got really good at talking about floods and the impacts of floods. They're easily seen over a short period. But in the last 2 or 3 years, for us, those clouds have not brought rain. They've been there, but there's been no rain. And so the spectre of drought, water shortage, and the need for management of water has come into view. Climate change predictions for us only forecast that drought is going to be an increasingly common occurrence. And so we needed a way to talk about those droughts. Now, droughts aren't easy to talk about because, as we all know, or hopefully know, they're slow onset beasts and they creep in and the public can't easily see them. But they're just impactful, if not more so, than floods. So we needed a way to discuss with our communities at all levels, from central government to local authorities who manage drinking water supplies, to agricultural and horticulture users, and to the general public who live with and care for our environment, about drought. We had some national reporting to call upon, but we wanted to back it up with some really localised specific reporting for our region so that our communities could grasp what we were talking about and get hold of it. We felt we needed to really clearly present and quantify drought so we could educate, mitigate the effects of it, and if we got to a certain point, allow us to defend the decision to put restrictions which could financially impact users. And so at this point, I'll pass you on to Max Mackay, who's one of the magicians in our data analyst team, who are tasked for getting that real hard work that's done out the field by the field hydrologists and turning into some useful tools. So I'll pass it over to you, Max.
Awesome, thanks, Glenn. I guess the simple reporting tools that we developed last year to help us talk about drought were largely enabled by the ability of us, or for us, to pull large amounts of data out of the Aquarius database using the Aquarius APIs, and then to manipulate or report this data and even feed it back into Aquarius. And using these API calls and some simple Python and R scripts, we were also able to automate a lot of this reporting. So it wasn't a manual process anymore, which really helped the way we operate here. And the first way we wanted to, or we decided to talk about rainfall deficits and rainfall totals was using a common index. And this is the Standardized Precipitation Index, which is a common reporting statistic used worldwide, and it's got really good guidelines and support from the World Meteorological Organization. And you can see here there's a lot of strengths to using this index. It's simple to create. You only need rainfall data. It's widely used. It's got well-defined drought intensity ranges, which is this table on the right, which meant we didn't have to try and make up drought or quantified drought values ourselves. It's already well-defined. And we can calculate it for different time scales, from short-term 1-month indices to 12-month plus indices. And its probabilistic nature means that it's quite well suited for decision making. There are also a few weaknesses to using this indice. So the values as we generate them monthly can often be based on our unprocessed data, which could change. And one thing that we found a little bit of a hitch was that we ideally need at least 20 to 30 years of monthly rainfall totals, and the guidelines recommended 50 to 60 would be ideal. And in this indice, there's no soil-based water component, although there is an option to calculate an SPEI, which includes evapotranspiration, but we didn't have enough data to go down that route. And so in Aquarius, we started all of our long-term rainfall sites with a primary precipitation data set. And from that, we already had a statistically derived data set giving total precipitation for each month, and that's the green arrow here. But what we needed was for quite a few of our sites where we didn't have 20 to 30 years of precipitation data, we needed to synthetically create some. So at sites where we didn't have enough data, we developed a relationship between monthly totals with a nearby longer term rainfall site, and we used this relationship to create synthetic monthly totals going back until we had 30 years of monthly data all up. And that's the gray arrow here, which is a synthetic data set, and we were able to combine the two using a pass-through to give us a data set which we could then use for calculating these indices. And we jump down here where again we're able to pull out these data sets using the API calls into RStudio. And RStudio, there is a package in R which has been created to be used in conjunction with the WMO guideline, the WMO user guide, and the R script essentially does all the heavy lifting of fitting the monthly rainfall totals to a gamma distribution and then normalizing it, and so that each monthly rainfall total, which was in millimeters, is converted to a standard deviation away from a mean. And we can do this in R for different timescales. So we've gone from 12 months, 3 months, and 1 month indices. And this allows us to look at rainfall deficits over a short term and up to a longer duration. And so once we've created those, we can feed these data sets back into Aquarius using the append to reflected API tool. And so we now have this new parameter, a standardized precipitation index, and different values. The next step for us was then to use the ability of Aquarius web portal to create simple heat maps. And this allows us to see these SPI values in a spatial context and to report on drought conditions at a more granular level, i.e. across different parts of our region. This slide here is the 12-month standardized precipitation index in March last year, which shows how the previous 12 months of rainfall up to this date relates to the full record. These heat maps let us see changes over time. This is the same 12-month index, but 1 month further along, and you can, and our decision makers and interested parties can see how the values are changing. And it also allows us to look at the different indices. This is the 3-month index for the same month as the first slide, showing sort of a greater magnitude of rainfall deficit in a 3-month period. And this 3-month index compares rainfall in January, February, and March last year with those same months throughout the whole record. And this, using these heat maps, just really enabled us to simply and accurately show our region and rainfall deficits. Another reporting tool that we were able to use, an idea that we found elsewhere but decided to try and implement ourselves, was a daily mean flow plot. And this allows us to see the current daily mean flow in our rivers, which is the navy blue line, but also, more importantly, where that fits in a historical context at each site. And so the blue shaded polygon in the plot above shows the minimum and maximum value that the river flow has ever been for each day during the year. And the grey polygon, the grey shaded area, is our 5 to 95 percentile range. And there's a historic median in there too. And these plots, which we've been able to automate via the data being pulled out of Aquarius using the APIs and plotted using R and created daily, really lets us see each river in context, up to date and in context about where it fits within its history, and also where it might fit within in relation to a low flow statistic, which could be any statistic. But here we're currently got a Q5 7-day statistic, which is the dashed red line down the bottom. So we can put that context on as well. And to go a step further, we were able to quickly put in a table to compare all of our continuous flow sites and where they all sat in relation to each one's low flow statistic at any point in time. And from here, we're able to really focus in on rivers or streams that were particularly low, especially during this event last year, and maybe sites that might need extra gaugings to support the current rating. And jumping on from that, we realized we needed an internal tool, an internal report for us to use, just to try and get an extra check on our ratings, our stage discharge ratings at all of our flow sites. Because with more people sort of looking at our data and wanting to use our flow and rainfall data and reporting on it, we needed an extra sort of check to make sure our data was up to date and quality assured. And so again, this report that we use internally for our field staff uses the Aquarius APIs to pull out flow data, engaging data, as well as field visit metadata, and to quickly chuck it into a spreadsheet report. And it allows us to see when each site was last gauged, when each site's discharge data was last processed and approved, and also how far away each of the last 3 gaugings are away from the rating curve. The outcomes of all this for us have been really beneficial. We now have a better daily picture of river flows and heads up with regard to long-term rainfall deficits. We've been able to get usable information to decision makers within our regional council and beyond, quickly, daily in some cases. And what we've found during this process, that the data that the field staff spend countless hours collecting has a lot of value, and possibly more than we sometimes exploit. And so we've had to be brave and get this value out, this data out there. And we're seeing, using some standardized reports and reporting tools that we were able to develop using these Aquarius software and Aquarius APIs, has allowed us to minimize interpretation. And we're seeing that we've had a little bit of a change from being just data collectors in our team, but also enablers of storytelling, and which allows decision making using accepted tools. And Glenn, from his level as well, has, I think, seen a lot of positive outcomes as well. And Glenn, I'll chuck it back to you to summarize what you've seen.
Yeah, thanks, Max. Yeah, so what it's done, and Max has kind of been over a lot of it, it's really allowed us to, I guess, approach some difficult discussions and keep calm about them, and have that kōrero, that discussion with stakeholders. It may sound trite, but it has allowed us to open doors to people we haven't been able to talk to before. And rather than being sort of like a regulatory body, we've been able to sort of work in partnership with them. I guess I'll close this presentation by saying that Aquarius, Time Series, and Web Portal have provided us some great enhancements over the last few years, and it's allowed us to put a lot of our data out there. But it's my belief that the next tranche of real opportunity is sort of working on developing more of those simple tools and presentations and getting them out there to both technical users, but also, more importantly, the general public, because it's them we've got to bring along with us as well. And the end of it is really the value of data is in its use and acceptance, and with the right tools, that data can actually speak for itself without in-depth analysis, and that's where we're trying to head. Thanks very much.